Nashville Founders Panel, Band of Brothers, which is this month's event. In the next few minutes, we'll tell you a little bit about Innovation Nashville's background, give you kind of a sense of what we're going to do tonight, do a little bit of housekeeping, and then actually I have a question for you all before we get started as well. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Certainly want to thank eSpaces and Clay for opening the doors here and allowing us to meet here in this great space. Also let you know that they are about to open a new eSpaces in Cool Springs later this year. I think they're saying September, October, somewhere in there, so be on the lookout for that. Also want to thank Entrepreneur Center downtown for their sponsorship, as well as Waddy Patterson, who supplied the refreshments, so they're extra special, exactly, yays for that. And also Music Sync for supporting, giving us time and energy, and tonight's host. So, a couple of other announcements. Want to let you know that if you'd like to tweet, the hashtag for tonight is INONash. And also that Robin Pashada will be hosting Entre Woman event, the second one, August 16th at CoLab, which we say quietly when we're at eSpaces. Okay, so a little bit of background on Innovation Nashville. Innovation Nashville came about from a belief that Nashville is poised and should be the place that meets the challenges and brings about the solutions in the media and entertainment space. So what we're seeking to do is to create innovative and collaborative environments, if you will, like this, that bring together entrepreneurs, technology, and media and entertainment in some unique ways to kind of encourage not just meeting, but execution. We believe that this is an opportunity to learn, but then we want to encourage you all to actually do, and then we want you to encourage you to grow. So grow your business, grow yourself, and that creates a cycle. So this is our core event that we do once a month. Tonight we have 4 guests that will be interviewed by John, and we do this once a month, so we encourage you to come back. After the Q&A that John will do, we will open it up, so if you have other questions, and I'm sure you'll think of some as we go along, please feel free to bring them up at that time. So, that is all I have. I'm going to introduce John Pashada, and he will introduce the guests for tonight. Come on, John.
Thank you, guys. Welcome to this month's Innovation Nashville. My name's John Pashada, kind of the organizer host for Innovation Nashville. And guys, let's go ahead and bring out our guests, John, Jackson, and Jason. If you would give them a big round of applause. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're gonna be sharing a few microphones here. So Jackson, you and I can share. So yeah, kind of a little context around Innovation Nashville. It really came out. The theme that's really presented itself is one company's hindsight is the next company's foresight. So guys like this, they're at a stage that's a little bit more evolved from the next round of companies, but the idea being to share those experiences and those stories in a transparent way that is open, honest, and non-solicitous is kind of what we call it. So that's a little bit about Innovation Nashville. So with that, let's jump in. So guys, let's share a little bit kind of about your history, maybe a minute or two of who you are, what you do, and how you've gotten here so far.
I'm John Dayani, and who am I? I'm an entrepreneur by birth, and have been a big fan of technology, and kind of found myself always wrapped up in different technology endeavors, typically from a sales standpoint. So most recently am a co-founder of a company called Goba, which is sort of trying to connect real friends in person. outside of the realm of social media, which tends to be really noisy and distracting. So I'll stop at that.
My name is Jason Moore. I'm the founder and CEO of Stratasan. We launched as Health Data Source back in September of last year. I started a company called Big Web Apps in 2000 in Atlanta, Georgia, which was a web-based applications company. We morphed into a software as a service model company. Never made it to the cloud because we still maintain our own server farm. So happily married, 3 children, 7, 4, and 2. And that's a big part of my life, so we can go ahead and throw that into the pipe.
My name is Jackson Miller. I am the founder and CEO of a company called Bison. We do business intelligence for franchises and restaurants. It was born out of my own needs as a business owner of another company. We have 2 Plato's Closet retail franchises in Murfreesboro and Cool Springs, soon to be a 3rd one in Green Hills that are ours. And so Bison was sort of came out of that. Before that, I had a failed startup called StatZen, which nobody knows what it is because it failed. And I've been doing this for about 7 years now. Been a developer for a little over 10. And yeah, I was the first full-time developer at Emma when they got started. That one's not so failed. You have heard of that one before, probably. And since we're talking about kids, I have 9, 8, 6, 5, 4, and 2.
Wow. Just trying.
Yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur because I have to feed all those kids.
That's great. That's great. So, guys, what I wanted to talk about tonight was I wanted everybody to kind of hear your story, hear about the wins, hear about the struggles, and really get a feel for the first 18 months to 2 years of a company's life cycle, from concept to customer and hopefully beyond. But that's what I wanted to drill down on. So, tell me kind of what that, how you got to Greenlight. Hey, this is a cool idea. I'm gonna really commit to this and make this work.
I can take that off. So I'm a software developer, so I always play with stuff and tinker with stuff and have had projects that I was working on, side projects. And so how do you make the decision as a developer that you're going to go all in on this one, right? And what happened for me was that I started looking at market size. What's that? Oh, sorry.
This is still making the way around town. Leland from Ditto Music. Got a little lost.
Max will be happy now.
Got a little lost. Good. So we're talking about kind of like how do you commit to your idea and say, okay, I'm going to green light this baby and drive it for the next.
Yeah, so for me, it was when I started looking at the market opportunity and the number of people that might be willing to pay for this. And then realizing that I was looking at that too narrowly and that it was bigger. And so once I saw a big enough opportunity, a big enough number that I couldn't not do it, is when I decided to sort of go all in on that one. So you know, I've played with a lot of projects. I didn't quit my job and focus full-time on the URL shortener, for instance, you know, but this one is a much better opportunity, and it was sort of looking at the hard numbers that help you see that.
Jackson and I had a little heart-to-heart before he quit that job, too, so it was a great conversation. So, like, the back of the napkin meeting around Stratasan happened probably in September of 2009. It was between myself and my now partner, Todd Featherwing, who was then at the Nashville Tech Council. And so that was almost 2 years ago. We kind of molded over. I was, you know, an equal partner at my last company at the time, so didn't really see myself kind of launching from it because things were going okay. And then about March, April timeframe of last year, we really started feeling like there was something that we almost had to do. So we started paying just for, you know, out of our own pocket for a developer on a contract basis to kind of build a prototype. And once the prototype was built, we actually kind of went on some sales calls
actually right before the prototypes, we went on some sales calls just to kind of see, had no intention of actually selling anything to them. Really just wanted to get the reaction, and then if they said yes, we really didn't have a plan for that. But we really wanted them to be excited about what we were doing. And they were, so I had to talk with my then partners at Big Web Apps and said something to the effect of, we need to start thinking about a possible exit. So that happened around the August time frame that I started transitioning through the end of 2010, launched Health Data Source, now StrataSan, in that same time frame. And then really fully launched, we got our Series A round of funding about 2 months ago now, 3 months ago. So that's really kind of when, okay. So that's kind of when we really started. So that's about it. So back of the napkin, molded over several different iterations. He was involved in the ideation. Didn't really know if he was actually going to be a part of it at that point in time, like an active role. We always knew, always definitely going to be an advisor, probably going to be a board member. He was an early stage investor as well in the seed capital round, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. But yeah, so he was early stage. It was our two backgrounds that really combined for the business plan of strategy.
So Lee, tell us kind of about you now.
Okay, so I run a company called Ditto Music. We started about 4 years ago in the UK.
You're not from Tennessee, right?
What gave it away? You ain't from around here, are you, boy? I've actually heard that a few times, but I'm not from around here.
Good.
So we started that about 4 years ago. I was in a band, we got dropped by a label. And we distribute around 30,000 artists around the world. We had a valuation of, I think it was £2 million UK about 18 months ago now, but we chose to kind of stay on without taking investment. To get back to the point of how we started, we were kind of in a valuable position now, looking back at it, that we didn't have a job, to kind of, so we'd already quit our jobs, we didn't have one. We didn't have any money, and we kind of had to do it really. If we didn't take the idea as we had, I mean, our strategy was we couldn't go out and find investment for this next 6 months. We didn't make money, but then we didn't.
Ditto does what?
Primarily, we distribute artists, but we help them have the same kind of rights and services labels do, but in a kind of reverse model to what a label does. People pay us to set a label up for them. People pay us to work on their projects. People pay us to become chart eligible, and we don't take any of their rights. So we kind of do exactly the same as a label does, but we get the payment up front, and then if it sells or not, it's a bonus. But
Right.
It's fine. The way it's gone, it's worked out really well for us.
So it's you and your brother?
Yeah, me and my brother. He runs a Liverpool office, and I run our Nashville office now.
Great. Good.
Sorry.
So John, how'd you get to kind of that green light stage of we're going to do this?
Yeah, the idea was birthed, and then for me, I had come off another company that had lost an opportunity based on the folks involved, other partners in that. And so necessity is the mother of invention. We started meeting with a bunch of folks about the concept over coffee, and just started networking, talking to people about it. And when next thing you know, everyone got excited about the idea. And then I'm fortunate enough to have some friends here in town who are older and wiser. And as I met with them, just people start connecting you with the right people. Hey, this is a program guy. This is a business guy. And one thing I set out to do on the front end was I didn't want to pay somebody to build it, because I had some failed startups where I'd put a lot of money into it. And so I had decided that what would be great to do is to find a programmer to come on board who would work for free, which is sort of a lofty dream. It was actually, there's an inspiration behind that in an Inc. article. But nonetheless, and I met with all these programmers in town and out of town, and would tell them the concept, and they loved it. But it was April of '09, we're coming right off the bottom of the market. Everyone's scared, kind of like they are today. And people liked it, but they couldn't afford not to be paid to take the time to do it. So, long story short, now a partner of mine, Stuart Young, and I had lunch, and I shared the idea with him. He said he was in, and I went to a weekly coffee where we were building out the concept, the ideation of it, And then he brought some folks he had worked with who had raised money, created companies, sold them, and this coffee went from just Stuart and I to 5 people, and then an older gentleman said, "Hey, we should raise money."
Let's drill down on that. Let's talk about founders for a minute here. How did you find your team? I mean, Jason talked a little bit about him and Todd, Lee, and your brother. That's kind of there. But Jackson, what do you look for in founders? Your team? What raises your, hey, this might work flag?
Well, I look for the absolute smartest, funniest, and best looking people to be founders. So I'm actually a solo founder. No. But that actually had its own set of problems. Kate was actually a step above me. I couldn't get her. I had to raise money first, right? But anyway, all joking aside, that has its own set of consequences, and that it was all on me. And so how did I, without giving away founder shares, I guess, get early help in the founder role? And so I was able to go through the Entrepreneur Center and work with a lot of mentors there to help pick up my slack and the things that I sucked at, and get some of that there. But you know, in this company, I don't have any founders,
So in each of our companies here, talk a little bit about the early wins. What were those 2 to 3 kind of putting points on the board for each of our companies?
So when I said we paid a developer to build a prototype, we didn't exactly pay market rate. So the first win was to convince him for a few equity points to take a reduced rate, and so he's now our CTO and co-founder, Brian Daly. Getting a technical person on board. At the time, he wasn't. The goal wasn't necessarily that he was going to be a founder, co-founder of the company. He was just going to have some points, but it worked out. It took me, because at the time he had no interest in working for the man. He was a very successful freelance developer. He had really no intentions of quitting that life and actually working on a specific goal and project. It took me about 6 months. We actually, very happen chance, one of those little blessings, that I was running a desk at CenterSource from Nick Holland. About 2 weeks later, here comes Brian Daly running a desk from Nick Holland and CenterSource. So he heard me talking about things, and he heard me talking less about big web apps and more about this new thing, and he was intrigued, and so we kind of talked about it, and I knew if I pushed too hard, he's the type of, his personality type would have been definitely, he considers me a suit, by the way, so hey suit, get away. And so it took about 6 months to convince him, subtly convince him, and it was a huge, that's by far, I think, the biggest and most important win of our company, is convincing him to come on board as a co-founder. And then the other things wouldn't have happened without that one.
Can I just actually expand a little bit there? Is that since we're talking about the genesis, and specifically in Nashville, it was hugely valuable for me being around other entrepreneurs. So being at the Entrepreneur Center, being at eSpaces, spending a lot of time over the past couple of years at events like, I don't know, whether it's Geek Breakfast or the CenterSource Mixer or these kinds of things, being around that kind of energy. And that's something that's relatively new to Nashville. We haven't had that for very long. And the more of that energy that gets in and gets involved, as I go to the Entrepreneur Center now, and it's all this younger group of jumpstart foundry companies who are hot on my heels going to try and catch me. I mean, it's like, it's motivating, it's competitive, and and then you get to bounce ideas off each other. So Jason and I were at the Entrepreneur Center at the same time and spent a lot of time bouncing ideas off each other, telling each other what was bad, and encouraging each other to take it to the next level. So I think that's really, really important in the founder-ish kind of area.
The ecosystem.
When we started, we really believed in what we were doing, but because we're a new company, it was the music industry, no one else really, believed in what we were doing, because it's a very suspicious industry, the music industry, especially with artists. They have to put their trust in someone. We didn't have a marketing budget at all, so we would just literally contact people on MySpace and have them want to work with us, and we figured this is going to take forever. So I think it was around October time, we looked into the digital chart rules, this back in 2007, and they brought in a law that said you can chart just from a digital single and the first week of January. So we got a band in October, and we set them up with like SMS pre-sales, and we sent them out to do their gigs, and we put them on pre-release, and they basically sold copies of their single by SMS, and we cheated a lot as well. It's been cool, isn't it? So eventually,
it's all over the web.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Didn't charts complete, by the way. So we eventually got the first ever unsigned band into the top 40, and that was the big thing that happened for us. And instead of putting all our time into kind of marketing or money into it, we didn't have to do anything. Literally, BBC One came around and did a documentary on us. We were in the Sunday Times, and I remember the TV show finished, and the phone just rang for 6 months.
Do you know Ricky Gervais?
Do I know him? Yeah.
Sorry,
We all know each other in England.
I'm rabbit trailing.
And the
here.
Queen.
Okay.
We all go around for crumpets. It's England. Thanks for listening, by the way. Anyone else got any feedback about Ricky Gervais?
What about Goba, John? What were some of the early wins?
Do you know Ricky Gervais, John?
Before we closed on our seed round, one of the notions in trying to bring people together is this ability to impact healthcare. I had a meeting with a senior management team of a company here in town called Aegis Health Group, who they're basically a business development outsource arm for hospitals. It's a whole other discussion. But anyway, so I sat in front of their management team and gave them a presentation as to what we were about to embark on as a company, and sort of calling out the white elephant in the room as it relates to wellness, which is a big deal here in town. That basically there's this notion that if you work for a big company and they adopt wellness, there's this notion, hey, if I adopt wellness, my employees will start skipping together and counting the calories they burn as they skip lunch to eat, sprouts and pita bread instead on their break of smoking. So, and the truth of the matter is, wellness programs, though they're really exciting from a management standpoint, are really lame from an employee standpoint, and that's what they do. They actually administer wellness programs on behalf of hospitals with employers. So basically, I presented to them this concept that what you need to do is you need to help the employee access their friends and do things in person, and if you can empower that, you can actually change behavior and create wellness. Anyway, presented this. It was just strictly a keynote presentation to the management, and they all got really excited about it. And this was before we even had money to start the thing.
Right.
It was sort of a big win to go. All right, that was actually is
So
and I
really,
define
early customer development before you had a product.
That's right.
That was it.
So if you can line up customers before you open the doors to your business, that's always been sort of something that's been ingrained in me because I've not done that a lot. You can get.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the chicken and the egg argument here. How do you get customers? You don't really have a fully baked product, and what does that conversation look like when you're pitching customers? Because you really have an idea and a conceptual framework, but you can't really give them something to touch or feel. How have you guys handled and gotten around the chicken and the egg piece of the equation?
Well, we'll let Jackson, who's recently quoted in the latest issue of Entrepreneur Magazine on this particular subject, to answer this question.
No pressure on that one. So I first of all still only have a half-baked product, to be completely honest. But I'm actively selling it every day. The good thing is just find customers who don't notice. No, but seriously, so I was my first customer. I mean, this was born out of a tool that I used for myself. So I had validated the market need. All I had to do was try and make it friendly, presentable, and sellable, right? Like easier to use and something that could spread. The risk with that is that I think I know exactly how the product should be since I built it for myself. And so the hard part for me was realizing that maybe I didn't get it perfect the first time, and that I need to listen to what the customers are saying. And by customers, I mean beta testers who are using the product for free because I said, hey, will you try it for free? And they said, who wouldn't, right? I mean, like that's, and so, but just having something that's useful at all, or that promises to solve a problem, then people will try it. And if you're right, they'll provide you some feedback. The worst scenario is that people will say they'll try it, install it, and you never hear anything, and they never log in, and it sucks. And so when people tell me something's wrong, I just had a phone call before dinner today where the guy was telling me how a couple of things are wrong and that we need to fix them. This is really great because it means I have an engaged customer. So for me, it was just getting the bare minimum, literally the absolute bare minimum that you could promise might maybe sort of do something, and getting that in the hands of someone to give you feedback. Yeah.
So the difficulty that may present is something you have on your list there that you handled. It was feature creep in your list, and beta testers are great. Paid beta testers are better, and then paid customers are the next step. So beta testers that are free beta testers, we're going through this right now with one of our products that we're releasing. We just released the second pretty long list of features and he told us last Thursday that in an email, and he said, if you get this done by the end of the week, you'll have a paid customer on Monday. This was 3 days ago. So of course we got it done and called it Monday, and there was a few more things that needed to be done. So that guy's now cut off, and because that's how you stop feature creep, is you stop it. And well, it's not that I'm not listening, or we're not listening, because we were listening, and we draw the line. So at some point, you said this was what the product needed to look like. We did that in the second iteration of what the product needed to look like, and you were ready to pay. So now at this point, and we have people paying for what was built by that. So he's kind of cut off for new features until he starts paying for what he said he would pay for. So I think there's a little bit of back and forth. You have to do it obviously very political and nice, but the end game is no. Or let's get some more commitment out of you. It's a give and take, just like anything else. So it's a give and take, getting something from your customer, because if it's not worth it to them, you're not creating value, and it's not going to be sustainable. So you can't continue down those rabbit holes. So we definitely, I don't know which is the chicken or the egg, but we definitely built, a pretty working prototype before we had any customers.
With us, we started making profit quite early on, but the same as most businesses go, I guess we worked out that 5% of our business was spending a lot of money, so we just started implementing literally new services to those guys and concentrating on people that had a lot of, literally, after that program went out, we get people phone up and say, how much for a top 40 single in England? We can't do that. We'll give you £10,000. And that was it. So we work out how do we give them the top 40 in England for £10,000, and then we just concentrate on the people that have money, because I'm sure you find in business, most of the people that end up wasting the time are the people that aren't spending any money and are just there to waste your time. So it's just...
Well, how do you guys do that? Because you guys are spread pretty wide.
Yeah.
How do you focus and really eliminate the feature creep of trying to be all things to all people?
I just have good support staff who can't handle the front line thing. It's hard, because we've got 30,000 active clients, that pay us money.
And Ditto is what, the largest distributor in the UK?
In Europe, yeah, we're the largest distributor in Europe, possibly not in the US.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's good, and it's challenging, because 30,000 artists is 30,000 people that have a release and have an investment to their music and their career. So you have to take everyone as a separate person. You have to remember that, and you have to make sure that everyone gets equal opportunity to speak to support staff and get advice and stuff. And I said, and with that, as we were saying about customers, we worked out early on that there's always going to be a small percentage of people that have more money, and to focus on them. We now have a freemium model, like I'm sure most people do, which is you get your music on iTunes free of charge, and from that we encourage them to try out different things. So really high prices and free prices, and get them into another thing that works.
Good. So in a startup, it's a band of brothers going to war together. And I don't mean band of brothers in a sexist term. I mean just, you know, each company here represents 5 to 10 people. Each of us.
Other numbers.
Yeah. So how do you develop culture intentionally in an early stage company? Is that even part of the conversation for y'all's company, or is it all about getting stuff done and building?
I'll dive into that. Me and 2 other founders and a guy ended up being was going to be come on board, but ended up taking an advisory role. We actually took a day and got some office space, which was plentiful downtown. A real estate guy had available, and we thought through who's going to do what and what do we want to create as far as our roles, which then dictated culture. So the luxury of being an entrepreneur and sort of calling the shots, because basically those with the money who give it to you call the shots, but is the ability for you to have, if you can have a vision for what you want to create and who you want to be, you can become that. So if you work for enough jerks, you can actually create the culture you want to help counter that. So I'm not a good manager. I don't like to manage, and I've got people who do that really well, partners, and I can't program worth a lick, so I got another partner who can do that. But all that to say, from a culture standpoint, we all have worked for folks and said, well, we don't want to be like that, so let's create the anti-that, whatever that is, if that makes sense.
So I was one of the first employees of Emma, and they're pretty much widely recognized for having a really great company culture. So when I started Bison, I asked Clint Smith to go have a beer with me and explain to me exactly how you create such a brilliant corporate culture. And so what he told me is that they basically did 2 things. They tried to create a place that they wanted to go to work every day, and they had beer. And I think those 2 are actually really legitimate for a start. No, they're actually required to be together. But I think that those are both actually really important. And you know, some people don't drink, and that's fine. I didn't drink when I started at Emma, but you came off really wrong.
So that's the answer.
So, but anyway, I want to try and just have a place that I want to go work at every day. And you know, Michael Burton talked about if people are there for dinner, he'll buy dinner. And I think that those kinds of little things go a long way. What I'm realizing though is it's not quite that simple. That there's also the piece that you need to create an environment where everybody knows that everybody else is going to get their job done. And there's been days where the person who didn't get their job done was me, and there's been days where the person who didn't get their job done was someone else. And so what I'm learning as a startup CEO is I need to do a better job of helping make sure everyone gets their job done, so everybody else trusts that that's going to happen, and we all work a little bit harder, because we're trying to do something remarkable and damn near impossible, and so we all have to perform at our best in order to get it done. But I think beer helps.
So strangely enough, I also called Clint Smith but we had coffee. So I think I actually got longer down Emma's story than Jackson did, because beers may have been a distraction.
There's a third point.
There's a third point, and everybody, the new buzz talk about culture is getting your culture book, and Zappos is very famous for theirs, and Emma's Nashville famous for theirs, but that didn't come about according to Clint until about employee 20 or so. So talk about culture, obviously with the founders. Talking about culture to your team is not that great of an effective exercise. Creating the culture and being the culture and doing the culture and delivering that culture every day, I think, is more effective in a startup world. I think Lee may have a different perspective because you have so many more employees that you may have to get more regimented with it.
Well, not really. I mean, we started off with a few employees. My vice president's over there, and he did. When we weren't doing so well financially, we gave him a vice presidency because that was the investment that we could give him.
Yeah.
And obviously, now it's worth a lot more money to him.
What's the head count?
20 maybe over the UK and US. We have a tech team and stuff as well, but just think the only secret is hiring amazing people. That's all. If someone's amazing and they work for you, it works. If they're not amazing, don't hire them.
Let's talk about that. I mean, the
early stage hiring of your first, say, 5 to 10 employees.
Horrendous. Like I said, we went from.
So let's talk about that. I mean, what has that experience been like for all of us, and what are the mistakes? What are the takeaways?
We went from working in our bedrooms to being in an office for the first time, and having, we had a lot of money thrown at us by people that wanted to get in the charts. And I'd never run a business before. I didn't go into the office much. I'd come in and there'd be someone in my chair that I didn't recognise. The staff were employing staff, and it was just an absolute shambles. And then after about, I started doing television at that time for some reason. I thought that, and it took me really about 12 months to work out how to run a bit more. I'm still learning, but at the time,
You're a music person.
yeah, exactly. I'm a music person. Well, I wasn't the best musician, but I did try. But I say the staff headcount was ridiculous, and now I said Jay, he did 9 months unpaid for us, and he used to get the train about an hour and a half to work every day, and now I've flown him out to Nashville. He's got an apartment here and he works here, and I'll look after him. As long as with the company, he's also got possibly going to have a stake in the company. And if someone's going to do 9 months unpaid, you know that they're in for the long haul, and that's the same thing really. I mean, I've earned my stripes. I think everyone else should if they work for your company.
Hire slow, hire fast.
Everyone says hire slow, fire fast, but when you're in a startup, you don't necessarily have the luxury of doing anything slow, right? Because it's hurry up, I need it done yesterday. Really, it's not been much of a pain because Brad, one of the 3 partners, he's an ops guy. He's a bit seasoned, knows a lot of folks already here in town from a development standpoint, from a technology standpoint, and had reach immediately to do 2 things. One was we had positions we needed to get filled and that would grow, and so as obviously here you wear a bunch of different hats. So we started with really just 2 tech guys, me as the sales guy, and then sort of some marketing interns, and then some guys we subcontracted with. And now the guys that subcontracted with, they're great. They don't want to work full time for us. They like being engaged in different products, but they give us more than we could pay them to give us. Same thing out of our employees. You got to get stuff done. You've got to create this environment where they're going to give you a bunch. So, and I think now we're getting to a point where we can have the luxury to sort of hire slow. But you also have to be ahead of the curve. You got to know what you need well before you need it. So you got to, like if you go, oh, we need to hire somebody to take on this development, you can't just find that person. You got to be 2 months out.
So I think a book, if you're wanting to start a company or if you have started a company and you're looking to hire, a great book to read is Who, WHO. I don't know the name of the author, but it's on Amazon, and you can actually get a used version for extremely cheap, like $4. But it's basically off of the Top Grading series, and so it's about, and really, it goes along with the hire slow or hire fast. It doesn't really matter as long as you have very defined roles that you're hiring for. And because I'm not a micromanager at all, and in every interview that I give, I very specifically, very serious about, I'm not going to micromanage you. You are going to manage yourself, and if you don't, then that's really one of the fastest ways to make it clear that it's not going to work out. That's one of the key attributes to working in our culture is complete, almost complete micromanagement. I'm sorry, self-management, because it's not getting micromanaged. So I think Who is a great book. It's all about scorecards and waterfall effect of those, but it's a really great book as far as startups and getting your overall team looking correct.
So for each of our companies here, what if you kind of lay out the roadmap for the next 90 days for each of our companies? What are the milestones that you guys see in front of each of your companies that you lead?
Jack?
I need to find a win.
I'm going to answer a different question. Here's what I've learned being in Nashville as a startup startup founder, CEO. That I have to both manage the investors' expectations and the press expectations. I Milt. At the same time, it's complicated, and I'm not yet adept enough at that to give you my next 90 days. If that makes sense. I'm gonna kill it in the next 90 days. I can tell you that, and it's gonna exceed my own expectations, or I'm not, and I'm gonna have learned a whole lot, and it's gonna be useful. I mean, that's really the most honest answer I could give.
I'm going to call Jay to see if he can get me on the charts in the UK. I don't know how. I don't play any instruments, and my voice is terrible. No.
No deal.
Yes, similar to Jackson's answer is there are several audiences that you have to manage expectations and motivate the correct way. Our next 90 days is strictly business development, signing on paid customers. We just moved into new office space, and we just hired another person today, and we're going to have 3 more people in the next 3 weeks. So we're kind of developers and data analytics and all that good stuff. So yeah, priming the pump.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into what we're doing in the next 90 days, but I think you raised a really important point that you do need a structure, you do need a target, even if it's just a 90-day milestone, even if you're a musician or you're a business owner. And perhaps, judging by the answers, maybe you haven't looked into exactly what we're doing over the next 90 days. We all know that, once you kind of get it down on paper,
but it's the secret.
Well, it's obviously, we're all going to be, worldwide millionaires, obviously. Keep it in our hands at the moment.
It's actually 9 guys.
But I think it's a good point, though. You do need to structure that closely, as well as 6 months to 12 months, 9 days.
Well, let me go here. For founders and CEOs, you have to manage the high-level strategy part of it, and you have to measure the boots-on-the-ground tactical part of it. Both a very different way of thinking conceptually and measuring metrics. How do you guys go high to 50,000 feet and then go down to runway type of thinking? Because you can't just live totally strategic.
No, you're right. Depends. Like for me, on feet on the street is actually meeting with the people who we're creating this for. So it's I like that. And then on the high level things of trying to keep vision, that's really more has to do with managing both where your investors and your partners think you're headed, and where your employees think you're headed. Hopefully those align, so you don't do a lot of juggling. I know for me, I won't shy away from 90 days. We've got, we just launched version 2. We've got universities launching this month, by the end of this month, followed by healthcare and political plays that we want to do in September, October. I know what I won't tell you is what we want the outcome to be. I have my goal, and hopefully we'll exceed it and kill it. But your question about, it all depends, I think, on how you're wired. I mean, I literally enjoy meeting
Some people really love
the
high-level strategy.
But I just like people. Right. So if I'm raising money, I like to sit in front of these people, meet them, hear their story, learn all of what they do. Right. If I'm selling, same deal. And if I'm hiring, same deal.
Gotcha. Good. So guys, what's something that you see that excites you? A trend, something new that's happening that you think is interesting outside of your
valuations are going up. Today. Well, maybe not today, but in general.
This is a really hot time for startups right now. I mean, it seems to me that maybe I have a really narrow, self-centered focus. Maybe not. It seems to me that startups and entrepreneurship is a huge focus of this country, and the country sort of needs it for the economy. Yeah, as it should be. So you know, I mean, in some ways, we're the rock stars right now. I mean, we have a lot of opportunity. We're working in a really exciting space, and yeah, he's really literally, yeah. But so I mean, that's a trend that I see, and I see that it's doing really, really well in Nashville. I think that a few months ago there was a really great post about what it takes to create a good entrepreneurial ecosystem in a town, and it takes, you know, some patron companies. So ours might be Emma and HCA. It takes, you know, an investment community, which we have growing with Bullpen and Jumpstart and some more active angels and the TN Invesco money. It takes people who have been there and done that, which we have more and more entrepreneurs who have been successful, like some of my investors at Studio Now. And then it takes a whole new crop of people on the ground doing the new startups. And I see all that here. If we could get a really great engineering school in Nashville overnight, that would be awesome. But other than that, like, I'm just excited by the velocity we have.
So the trend that I'm most excited about is right there. It just so happens to be the place I live, is a place that really is escalating itself in the entrepreneurial world. We have a lot of things coming together right now that are exciting. You know, there's always questions about, well, can you raise money in Nashville? And you know, the truth of the matter, if you're looking to raise money, it's hard to raise money anywhere. There may be more money other places, but there's going to be a whole lot more competition as well. So if you're going to be able to attract investment, you're going to be able to attract investment here. There's really probably, I mean, because of the things that Jackson just mentioned, the TN Invesco and the startup funds and just the whole momentum and the buzz around entrepreneurship, you know, you should be able to, right now is a very good time to raise money if you are in Nashville, if you're wanting to move to Nashville, you know, location-wise. So that's a trend to me. Getting back to Jackson's earlier point, one of the best things as a startup entrepreneur is to be around other entrepreneurs, whether they're in the startup mode or if they're more experienced or if they're whatever. You know, being around other entrepreneurs is probably one of the most important things you can do to become a better entrepreneur. It's not any different than anything else.
On a tangent, I'm quite excited about the fact that, you know, we get more credibility really. I mean, a few years ago it was just, I'm running a business, now you're a CEO of a company and that kind of stuff. The only thing that concerns me about being in Nashville is that, like, we've had a lot of students from Belmont kind of interning, and we've had a lot, they don't seem to get taught as much about starting their own company as kind of put out into the workforce and how to get a job. And I think if the universities could concentrate more on that, then it would be a much more vibrant place. Obviously, there's a very musical centre of town, and apart from healthcare, you know, it's one of the biggest industries. But you don't see that many people coming out straight out of university that are encouraged to start their own company.
Yeah. So the education system is kind of, the universities are educating for.
It's an expensive university.
Sure.
And I expect for that kind of money, they should be teaching them. I mean, you know, Harvard does it brilliantly. Go out and do something yourself. Right.
But they are. I mean, some of the schools. We got some great universities here, but specifically in the music space, they're educating for the Garth Brooks era, and that world
they are. But
is non-existing.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sure he's still around somewhere. Oh, yeah. The main problem is that the mainly educated people don't get a job, and that's obviously, you know, I started out and we didn't have a job, so we started a company. It's a lot easier to make money yourself, I think, than go and, you know, work for another company.
I think it's one of my classmates.
I didn't want to talk about golf books.
The trend that I get excited about is what Roger McNamee and all these other folks were talking about on CNBC, which is the notion that mobile is just this incredible piece of technology, which is just becoming this appendage that we carry around with us everywhere. And
the mobile first strategy from Google, that's their priority.
Yeah, and you know, and it's so rampant that there are laws to keep you from looking at your phone or texting while you're driving because we can't get away from it. And so everything that's sort of heading that route, and the other trend that I enjoy a lot is the notion notion that Facebook is now seeing an exodus of users. I think in the U.S. we've seen this plateau of people kind of getting over it, and they're done sort of spending so much time on it. It's a great source of entertainment, but you know, people are kind of wanting. We're getting a backlash.
You got to get work done.
Yeah. So as far as MySpace is concerned, not MySpace, but your vertical. My vertical is concerned. You know, seeing that trend and people kind of going, hey, you know what? I'm tired of staring at a screen all day. I'd sure like to be with people. And then how do you leverage this piece of device? I think 1 in 2 Americans are supposed to have a cell phone by the end of this year. I mean, sorry, not a cell phone. A smartphone by the end of this year, which is phenomenal.
That's great. Well, good guys. We're gonna hang out here in about 20 minutes, but part of what we do is just open it up for Q&A. We want this to be interactive and to really be kind of a brain trust of kind of inspiring other companies. So, any questions from our audience here? Yeah, Kate.
Yeah, several of you guys, if not all of you guys, have solutions that seem like they were ahead of the marketplace when you started. I'm just curious, you know, what your strategies were or what your tactics were to try to educate your marketplace at the same time that you were building the solution and coming to market. Is that something that you were concerned about, you were addressing?
Good. So the question is, if you're leading, if you're early in your space, how do you educate your customers? Is that right, Kate?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. How do we do that?
Not being silent. I'm only being silent because my company is probably not in that scenario. I think the healthcare world it's been kind of coming to slow adopting the cloud services, so it's just kind of ready. So I don't think mine isn't some monumental thought process, and I think I'm actually just meeting the market need. Yeah.
I don't know how you classify mine, but I feel the same way that when I was out talking about Bison, people said, well, this has to exist already. There has to be these out there. And I think I'm just filling a need that's been filled poorly. I mean, I would venture to say maybe you feel similarly. I don't know.
Kind of. I mean, it was quite. When everyone said we moved to Nashville, you know, people didn't understand why we were going there, but because I'd say you talk about Daft Brooks and like multiple artists, and we're a digital music company, you know, and we're finding new revenue streams from new music. But as we came there and we just put as much information as we can out and just kept out as many meetings as we can, we just did some back catalogue last week for some Paul McCartney stuff. Someone else was Manfred Mann. We went for other stuff. And we found that a bunch of the artists that were kind of were a bit scared before are working out that, you know, sites like Spotify and these streaming sites actually are going to make some revenue. And because we have so much information out there that we keep persistently putting out on the internet, usually we're the first people they go to get that. So you can't really do much apart from trying to educate people and put information out.
Gotcha. So Goba's kind of early. I would say that question is really connected more to what you guys are doing at Goba. How do you educate your customers?
Well, we have 2 customers. We have one, our users, and we're filling a need that I had. For example, you know, if you want to get your friends to go together for a movie Friday night, how do you do that? Right? You're not going to call 10 people and say, hey, you want to go to a movie? Hey, you want to go to a movie? Hey, you want to go to a movie? Though that would be very effective in their response rate, it would be very ineffective of your time because we're so busy, right? So in our world, you create an opportunity to do something with friends, and then via mobile we invite them, and it requires a response. So we put it out there in the wild. You put a beta product out there in the wild, and you just kind of watch and see what happens, and that tells you how to tweak that out. I'm not educating them. I'm desperately trying to figure out. Okay, you're tired of Facebook, but you're extremely isolated, and you have 2,000 friends, but nobody you hang out with. You know, so how can I help you? And that has a lot to do with let's make it as easy as possible to get the word out and mobilize your friends. But the other customer is, and this was a big strategy for us when we were sort of thinking about this concept. We started realizing, you know what, you've got all these big brands, you've got big companies, you've got artists, you've got all these people who have a Facebook page or a Twitter feed. and they like it, and they follow it, or they share it, or, they tweet it. And then all of a sudden, in 2 years, that went from very engaging to just plain noise, right? And so I've met with PR folks, I've met with brands, I had an incredible lunch today, and bar none, no one has told me, you know what, I use Facebook so effectively, it's driving my bottom line. You know, what they do, and like healthcare is a classic example of this. You get people who run the marketing campaign for a hospital, they actually hire people, right? And all you do is they go, okay, find something to tweet and make it really funny and tweet it at the right time so people will click the link, and then you can see how many links you've got clicked, and everyone's looking for, and we've been real fortunate. We've got a guy on our board, Mike Comegna, who's just been phenomenal. He's been in the internet space forever. And in the first board meeting, which has a lot to do with trying to find capital and board members who are out for your interest as well as theirs, you know, they want to propel the company. But he said everyone's looking for engagement. Engagement, engagement, engagement. Everyone wants to engage. And so we walk in and we tell people, we tell customers in this case, you're trying to engage an audience. You're trying to use Facebook, Twitter, and no one's listening. The best example I've heard is like wet snow. You tweet or post, it hits, and as soon as it hits the ground, it's gone. It's got a 45-minute shelf life, depending on how many friends there are. So there's just not a really rich way to engage. The best way to engage is if somehow you can get access to that phone that's 3 feet from your audience.
Sure. Good.
You can engage if you could provide free beer.
Yeah. Other questions?
Does that answer?
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
Jackson and I've actually had a few conversations with a lot of people about this specific question too, and is very early thought-based companies right for Nashville? You know, is this the right place to launch a company in that area? Really out there, really I don't know if this is the best place to launch companies like that. That is one of the things that you do have to do is if you're launching a company, and whether it's looking for investment through traditional investors or through via customers, you really need to look at where you are and where you can service. And a lot of our conversations have centered around that Nashville is the entrepreneur community in Nashville is really rich for companies that are addressing a specific market need, and it's tangible, and just find a pain point and go do that. But I think there may be better places to launch really thought leading, like really out there, especially from the interactive technology space.
Another question, David?
Would you say, kind of like, since you guys are like right in the middle of the startup community, would you say Nashville startups are more B2B or versus business, consumer driven? And
good question.
Does that affect, the future of who we're going to draw to the city and finance?
Great question. So the question is Nashville better suited for B2B plays than consumer plays? What do we think?
What do we got? We've got B2B, B2B, B2C,
Well,
B2C.
kind of B2B, really.
If you consider a band a business.
Yeah, but it's your B2B.
B2B to C.
We do a lot of work in education stuff,
So, Jason said that we have conversations about this periodically. I mean, I have sort of a profile of what I think works in Nashville. I think that if it is a revenue-focused company that can leverage partnerships to gain customers. I think that Emma's agency is a good example of this. I think Studio Now's partnership with Yellow Pages is a good example of this. You can leverage leverage partnerships to gain large amounts of customers. And then it doesn't have really strict engineering requirements. Is the kind of company I think that can do well here. And I had that specifically in mind when I started Bison. Does that make sense?
agree with that sentiment. That it sounds. I think when you boil it down that way, it sounds too simple. Revenue focused, easy partnerships, but it really is getting back to basics. And just because your idea is revenue focused and it may be easy to partner with, or you feel it's easy to partner, doesn't mean it's a good idea. So it still has to be a solid idea. It still has to be built around a solid team. You still have to show real traction. Real business model. But in the end, I think Nashville can play both sides. From a startup world, I probably feel it's easier to be B2B because that's where I live. And we're finding some success. If we were having a really, really hard time, I'd probably say it's easier to do B2C. But right now, I feel it's better.
What are you guys seeing, though? I mean, out there, are you seeing more B2B? Take a gander at Nashville startups. Are you seeing a trend either way? Just not whether it's suitable or not, but whether you're just seeing it's more B2B because that's just.
I see more opportunities there, and there's a clear pathway to profitability there, rather than just eyeballs and then monetizing eyeballs later on. There's a lot of question marks in that.
Our whole model's built around gaining access to eyeballs to monetize that. So, which is kind of ironic in light of the internet bubble before, except now we know there's actually a path to monetizing eyeballs. So it's not such a, gee, I wonder if we had a bunch of users if we could make money at it. The trick for us is what we did in order to garner money here was we created a way that said, okay, so if we get eyeballs, we can do that, but we can go B2B and we can work with these folks who are trying to engage their audience and give them a tool. They'll actually pay for it, and then we can see that audience with our service.
Milt probably has the best idea in the room of who's funded in town, but as I look through like the previous Jumpstart class and the other funded startups that I can think of in Nashville, I think the majority are B2B. So I think that if you want to raise money in this town, that appears to be easier from that.
Absolutely, I would agree with that.
It's a great question, though, David. Other thoughts, questions?
Yeah, I got one. John.
Yeah. What's your name?
Daniel Hightower. I come from the VC side, so I'm always interested in hearing, do you guys have your exit strategy?
Great question. What's our exit?
Can we all just say yes? I mean,
let's just go around and just kind of say, okay, best case scenario, what do we see as potential exit?
This is going to sound a little cliche. My best case scenario is I don't exit. If I'm successful in my mission of making local commerce more efficient, then I think that I can take this company a really long way. The second tier successful, yeah, I'm going to piss off some point of sale companies. I'm going to piss off some, payroll companies, and so second best case scenario, I get bought by Square. But yeah, I have exit strategies in mind.
It's a very good VC question, and because we've successfully raised a Series A, we definitely have an exit plan in place that we communicated to them, or we probably wouldn't have raised a Series A. But more to the point, when raising, if other entrepreneurs are looking to raise capital and how that works, that is where you kind of need to, almost start your story. Maybe not start, but it needs to be in there pretty early in the story you're telling. And so don't get caught up on valuation, because exit is really what is going to sell your story if you're looking for investment. If you get caught up on how much this investment means you're worth today, you're going to waste a whole lot of time, you're going to lose a whole lot of sleep, and if you get the opportunity to get in front of capital, you're going to lose your chance. Because what about it? I can't talk about that.
but I know it. Yeah.
I do have one.
You got a slide on it.
Yeah, that was what I was selling on, but it's actually my personal goal is much better than that.
we still own 100% of our company, and we turned down some investment before we came over, and we're mulling over investment at the moment, and things like exit strategies are one of the things that, you know, put me off it. But I see my service more as a brand, and, you know, just as a service, because we do so many things right. It's quite hard to think, you know, to say you're going to get out and exit and everything. But with that, we're looking to our options.
Hold on.
What?
We're looking at
I did the same as he did. Went over the subject.
Here's the bush we're going to beat around.
We're talking to a few people at the moment, you know. But I said we're a profit-making company, and we don't necessarily. I don't need investment to keep my company going, but, you know, to get to where I want to, I possibly it's a good time to take it. But I'm still thinking about it, still mulling it over.
What about Bill?
I think if you create enough value in your company, the exit strategies will find you. So you make the case that if we can perform this, then this will drive a certain value, and then that'll be valuable to somebody. And then you hope to have the chance to ask yourself the question: well, do we want to take this exit, or do we not want to take this exit? Right? Did Facebook want to be sold to Yahoo, or wasn't it Yahoo, or did they not? Or did Groupon want to be sold to Google, or did they not? You know, and if you're at that point, that's great. I mean, I think in order to be motivated enough to get in front of people and ask them for their money, or try to be the one to create something that everyone thought existed, you have to ultimately think, well, it's going to be valuable to the users. If you can drive revenue or eyeballs, then all you have to do is say, here are examples. Here, Google bought these 10 companies for 10 million like that because of X, Y, and Z.
But if your goal is to raise money, you need to have that rough story of, I'm going to deliver you 10X in 5 years, and I'm going to have about a 25% chance of doing so, and here's how this backwards calculated down. So it is important, if you are going to raise money, to think about that exit conversation. I know Jackson's exit as well, and his is much different than he's sold his investors. It's much loftier. It gets back to what these are. My goal is not to sell Stratus, but it was part of the story. If I would have tried to sell the story to the investors of what I really think we can do, man, they would have absolutely laughed me out of the room. And there's no way that, you know, that I could convince them to give me money on that story. So you have to construct a believable story, an investable story, which is, you know, down at DC, it's Michael Burcham's big mantra, is your concept to investable story.
And I think if you want to know who will buy you, I mean, who are you disrupting, right? Or who else is disrupting that same area? I mean, that's the companies that are your exit strategy.
Last question? Yeah, right here.
Can you talk about funding for your business? Anything you can think of?
Sure. Question of funding. Early stage funding. How we haven't gone there. Let's talk a little bit about what that looked like for each of us.
My favorite misconception that I had about raising capital is that first of all, it's brutal. I mean, it's hard. It's a lot of work. It's very hard, especially if you're trying to launch a company and you're kind of 75+% of the production of the company, because it gets distracted pretty quickly. But my big,
What do you mean by that? 75%?
because your new customer target is investment, not customers. So it changes your focus, and it is very difficult to. Many of these gray hairs are due to the funding round. But my biggest misconception that I think is common is term sheet is celebration day. And boy, howdy, is that fun. That is like, that was like saying the guys that landed on Normandy, finished the trip, because it really gets ugly from term sheet. It is, you think there's some due diligence done before term sheet, man, we've agreed on some terms, and it just gets very difficult from there. So that was a big lesson learned.
The flip side being, you got to celebrate the term sheet too, because By the time you actually get to closing, you don't have time to celebrate. It's time to get busy because you have money and they're expecting you to put it to work. But exactly what Jason said, I mean, for 3 months we went from being a business intelligence company to being a fundraising company, and really didn't get a whole lot done. It's hard.
I would say that you run into people who come up to you and go, oh, I've got this idea, I want to raise some money. And unless you've done it before, it's just not, it isn't that easy. You kind of have to put, and you have to put yourself in the investor's shoes. What if you had a bunch of money and you wanted to give it to somebody? What do you want to see? And then you got to become that. It has to be your idea plus how you're going to execute it. Why the people who are around you are so great, and you just have to. Your business is nothing more than just telling a story. His story is incredible. He didn't raise money. He just money came to him because he had this great product that he started selling. He didn't need it. Each one of them, we're just writing a book, and you have to. If you don't believe you're writing a book that's compelling enough for you to dive into, then no one else is going to do it. But usually, what makes a book really interesting are the people that you have in it with you, right? And they give you the money, but it's
Band of Brothers.
It's a band of brothers, and it's outside. I mean, it's about as close to marriage as you can get.
It's a whole lot easier to get out of a marriage than what I hear.
All right, so before we retire to the mixer and drinks, what is, if you can inspire and kind of share one core thought that you think really is that you want to leave with the next batch of companies that are growing up in town, what do you tell them?
I'll go first. I have learned more in the past year than any other time in my life. I am both more confident and more humble at the same time. If you have the opportunity to play this game, go all in. It's amazing.
So I have a little saying engraved on the back of my iPad because it's free, and it says, "Step 1, show up," and "Step 2, don't quit." And you have to live by that if you're leading anything, especially if you're actually the leader of starting a company. Show up every day, don't quit, and that will motivate your culture, your team, your whatever. And part B to my answer is mentors. Go find mentors. Go sell mentors on the ability to have a relationship with you around this idea, and peer mentors as well. Jackson, I've mentioned his name a couple times. Jackson and a few others. We have a peer mentorship group that we've been meeting for almost 3 years now. And neither one of these companies were even conceived when that happened. So peer mentors, but also other mentors. I mean, find them, motivate them just to have lunch with you. And it's amazing that the people that have the experience that you want to create, they really like talking to you about it, because it really actually reminds them of a lot of the stuff they've done. And so it's really actually, go find mentors. It's really, really important.
I think our main point, don't listen to critics, but really listen to your customer. So when we started off, we got slagged off by everyone in the music industry. But when we got slagged off by customers, and even if it was online, if there's something bad said about us, instead of trying to get it taken down, we'd try and answer them, and then learn what their problem was, and then grow with them and give them feedback. And you usually find out these people that write really angry things about you on the internet. Once you write something back, they go, they calm down, and they're usually quite cool. So don't hide from criticism from customers, but as everyone else, it's not really worth listening.
I would say along the lines of that, you can't do it alone. So surround yourself with great people. That includes team, that includes money, that includes friends, that includes mentors. You'll suffocate out there alone. I mean, you've got to, that's it. So if you have an idea and you're trying to get from idea to execution, you better run quickly and find people to surround yourself with, because it just happens. It's positive. You've got to surround yourself with great people. They tell you can do it, and you're like, okay, I can do it.
Good. And I'm going to start using the phrase slagged off.
We don't have that one in Nashville, though. If you'd like to learn any more English phrases, do catch me afterwards.